Suga Sean has tweeted out, and I quote, Henry saying me and Aljo only did 350,000 pay-per-views according to his source, girlfriend. Just talked to the UFC. I heard upwards of 570K. Legit. No kizzy. Not making this up. Aljo versus Henry did 135K. Also, Henry is 5'2", LOL. Now, there's a lot there because I don't choose to debunk or choose a side. It's one of these things that I find to be very interesting. Like, I don't actually know what the numbers are. Nobody does. And Dave Meltzer used to put out a guess, allegedly based around a Google search algorithm, which was completely made up. There was nothing on it, but he used to put out a guess, and I will tell you, Dave, while way off, was the closest. And he was the closest for years. And he stopped doing it. I think because people found out he didn't actually have an algorithm, but I don't know. Either way, he stopped doing it. But these numbers are interesting to me, right? I mean, I always take them at face value because I have nothing else. So they could both be right. And there's a way for them both to be right. There's something called the drip in pay-per-view, which is where buys will come in after the fact. They will start to build your way up, and then the night of, they get absolutely inundated. Sometimes so much that it shuts down servers. See Mayweather versus McGregor, just for example. They had to start the show like an hour and 20 minutes late because people couldn't buy it because so many people tried to do it at the same time. I'm just trying to make a point for you that after the fact, there's still buys that come in. Now, they're very limited, right? News and sport are two things in the world that have to be viewed in real time. There's a reason, no matter how great a Super Bowl was, or what its rating was, they don't replay it. Now, I only say that because the UFC did do something very different after this fight. The UFC will never allow somebody, use SportsCenter by example, to show their finish. They won't allow their own channels to show the finish. They'll allow them to say that there was a finish. They'll even allow you to say how the finish came. A rear naked choke, an uppercut with the rear hand. But they won't show it. Just for example, they won't show it on their own YouTube. They won't let Fight Pass show it. There's a moratorium put on that for X amount of time where you can't see the actual finish. And they made an exception, a first time ever exception. And they allowed the finish, the fight in its entirety, to be put out. Why? Well, in theory, it could make a lot of people interested. When you have an upset, right? Like there's some ingredients that will help the drip come in, meaning after the event, post facto, making people go, oh, I wish I would have bought that. Oh, I wish I would have seen that. Oh, I can't believe I missed it. Oh, I would have got it, but I didn't think that Suga Sean had any chance. That's the whole reason I didn't stay home, right? Like that's a real thing, and there's part of a formula. And I'm only suggesting for you that it is possible. It is possible that Henry has accurate information at one point in time. I mean, Sean is saying that they did 570. I'm just sharing for you. If you're going to get to 570, at some point you hit 350. If Henry got his source and his call along the way, they could both be right. And I only bring it to you because it is a fascinating thing to know what numbers are, and that is something that is very privileged. Like, that would be some real inside information. So when Henry comes out and says it's 350, by the way, I have a source at ESPN. I mean, I think that he would burn his source. I think that Henry was trolling. I'm just here to tell you that at a period of time, that is a very good guess. And now Sean is saying 570, but he's also saying that Aljo Henry did 135, and it was much closer to 250. So, I mean, I just bring for you, like, everybody's numbers can be true at one point in time. And I love to try to learn these. See, what I would like in a perfect world is that they're both right. I would love for Sean and Aljo to be cruising towards 570. Do you know what that would do for Aljo, by the way? And that would be a very exciting thing. To get in on participation, just so you understand how contracts work, there's certain words out there, I might take them for granted, but there's something called a threshold. So if you're going to get paid on pay-per-view points, you must first meet a threshold. which very standard boilerplate is 200,000. That's our, right, we paint in broad strokes over here, but that's the break-even number. So anything above 200,000, now you start to get your points to come in. And I'll just share for you. I mean, if you think that you're going to tease Aljo at 135, maybe he didn't reach his threshold, but if he comes in at 570, that would be a really exciting moment. I would love that for him. I would love for that to be true. And Aljo's usually pretty good at coming and communicating and let us know. Aljo has been just such a gentleman about this. He's choosing to pick his fight and get his rematch behind the scenes, no more than social media. I'm just sharing for you, like it's one of these spots where you don't have to choose who to believe. For all we know, we're being trolled by both guys, which would be very likely, right? If you get a call from the UFC and they tell you private numbers and you go put it out, that's pretty unlikely. If you got a source over at ESPN and they share with you a private number, you take the call and then you put it out and you reveal that you got a mole inside of ESPN, it's very unlikely. However, it is possible. And in the vein of possibility, to get to 570, you'd have had to have passed 350, which means at the time of the statement by each guy, it could be true. What do you think? 350 is not a bad number. 350 is a higher number than the heavyweight championship reportedly did a year ago. 570 would be 70,000 more than Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz, as reported by Jake Paul. And I'm only attempting to put this in perspective for you. When you hear those kinds of things and you hear those kinds of numbers, who do you think has a more accurate portrayal? The gentleman that said 350 or the gentleman that said 570?